So thank you for having us. This is the second time that we've participated, albeit now this is directly in the InnerSource Commons Summit. And today we're going to be talking about open source tools that we've developed to enable InnerSource. So the agenda very briefly is that we'll talk very briefly about InnerSource at Shell. I'll introduce myself and Amber can introduce herself. We'll talk about the InnerSource maturity model, which addresses some of the things we've just heard from IBM. And then we'll launch into the products themselves. First, the AI-powered discovery tool. I'll give a brief explanation as to the why and wherefore of it. And the same thing goes for what we call the repo repair tool. We'll briefly outline our commitment to open source, and then we'll open it up for any questions. I do recognize that time is of the essence. So the InnerSource enablement team has been at Shell since 2023, and we've been working on making the organization more InnerSource enabled, despite the fact that the organization has been going through a significant restructure over the past 18 months. We found that culture was only one part of the story. So what we do events which try to influence the culture. So for example, every year we host something called Open Fest, and we get speakers from industry and speakers from within Shell to try and provide the power of example to influence the culture. But we also found that we needed to make tooling changes too, and we developed two significant tools to help our teams make their code more shareable. And we've deployed this for the InnerSource community as open source projects. It's an extension of our InnerSource ethos. So who are we? Well, technically, my title is InnerSource Lead, and I lead ISET. I have been working for the company since March 2023 and been given the brief of trying to encourage, spread, and put forward InnerSource behaviors and the strategy towards getting that implemented within Shell. Amber is our Senior Applied Innovation Engineer. Amber, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Lindsey-Rigg. Like Christian said, I'm a Senior Applied Innovation Engineer at Shell. What that means is that I am very lucky and get to work on a lot of new technology in Shell, including edge computing, blockchain, time series data. But what I'm most passionate about is InnerSource, and I currently run as the InnerSource technical lead, helping develop all our new technologies on our platform.
Thank you for that. So when the team began working and we were looking at what is it that makes code more easily shareable, and what we found was that there are certain things that you can do to make your code repository more shareable with others, and documentation is certainly part of it, but also making sure that you have a license file there is also very important. We've been working with the University of Erlangen-Nuremberg, and one of the projects that they've been working on is talking about what are the tax implications of knowledge flow transfers between companies that say are located in Germany, UK, US, and does that create a tax implication for intellectual property? So license file goes some way to dealing with that. Having a proper README is incredibly important. Having proper tagging, commented code, having protected branches. We also in our particular setup, we have SonarQube as a security measure, and we also try to make sure that Dependabot doesn't identify any high or critical issues. We want to make sure that there's a clear commit history and a developer guide and a how to contribute guide. And then we have developed the bronze and silver and gold and platinum standards on top of that. And we're trying slowly to move Shell developers up the value chain. It has become a mark of prestige for some developers to have a gold marked repository. And that is a culture change as well as a technical change. By the way, one of the things that we found that was critical was making sure that this maturity model is developed in collaboration with the developer population. We have regular working group meetings where we talk to developers from across the organization, representatives from as far afield as Brazil, India, Amsterdam, and so on come and talk to us and provide their feedbacks. As you can see, it's an evolving thing because we're on version 2.4. So let's talk about the AI-powered discovery tool. What we found is that a repository, you can do everything that you want in terms of trying to make your repository mature, but it's being set to open just isn't sufficient. If it can't be found, then it can't be reused. When we started this project, GitHub didn't have a standard search improvement on their roadmap. There wasn't any talk about using the large language models at their command in order to improve their search. And we were told that if AI generates less code, then it's less necessary. However, the best code is the kind that you don't have to program again. And furthermore, what we also wanted to embed was effective search across information resources. I was very interested to hear IBM talking about searching across Stack Overflow. Ours does. It searches across Stack Overflow and SharePoint as well as GitHub, and it didn't exist within Shell at this point for the purposes of developers. So we built a natural language search leveraging AI to provide enhanced results. So here are some of
Yeah.
the key features. Amber, do you want to take it away, please?
Thanks, Christian. So the AI Discovery tool is a semantic search tool that runs entirely on CPU infrastructure. So we have multiple endpoints running, and it costs us roughly about $400 a month, including our front-end pieces. We currently use open source models from Hugging Face using BERT for the cosine similarity. And if you use the tool, what you first do is you can type in a query using either keywords or natural language, and it will provide you a list of repos which are relevant to your query or your search. Then from there, you can start filtering. For example, I love writing in Python, so I can filter in languages like Python. I also want to make sure that the code I'm looking into is of good quality, so I can filter on things like SonarQube, MEN, Dependabot, and most importantly, what you saw that Christian was showing, the InnerSource maturity model, you can also filter on that. So people don't just get the repos that are useful, they also get high quality repos that they can trust and they can connect with people and use. Like Christian said as well, because we use these small models, we actually have expanded it to different data sources in Shell. Example is our Stack Overflow area, as well as a lot of Shell internal documentation. And we can handle both structured data and unstructured data. When people search, they basically configure and query all these multiple endpoints at the same time. And we aren't the only team now using this in Shell. Other teams are adopting this backend technology, such as the Shell's Data Foundation team, and they're using it to actually search for data that they can reuse. And this is targeting one of the biggest problems that we have in Shell, is that we have a lot of really good information, a lot of really good code, but we are so large, we are so disconnected. Could you go to the next slide, please, Christian? Great. One of our main focuses when developing the AI-powered discovery tool was making sure that it was cost efficient, but also carbon efficient. So the way that we've worked on it is that it entirely runs on CPU, avoiding any GPU infrastructure. So each endpoint, so Stack Overflow, GitHub, and also our internal documentation, is only about $400 a month, making it highly cost effective. This is how we've addressed this, and how we've made it so efficient is by having these small computes that we can then scale up if we need to individually. So it means I can change one endpoint but keep the others the same and keep the cost down low. Additionally, we are also using open source tools like Hugging Face and BERT to make sure that we can benefit from the community driving innovation and actually avoid licensing cost. Another really important part of how we're able to get these very small models to work is that we do a lot of work in our data preparation. So we ensure what we put into our corpuses are well structured. And we actually do this with generative AI. Could you go on to the next slide, please, Christian? So when we launched last year, we launched the Project Fleming during the InnerSource Commons Summit as in the keynote. This allows you to use all the things that we have in the AI-powered discovery tool, but even more. So it supports the multiple endpoints with semantic search. It will be cheap to run, like I said, the $400 a month. We've also included a generic web front end that you can easily deploy. And then we've also included a virtual README generator. So this is something we see a lot. We see a lot of really good code and a lot of good repos, but the documentation is very poor. So with poor documentation, it's really hard for us to put this into the search tool for people to find. So we actually use generative AI to prepare the data so that we can then use easier and smaller models on the data itself. Please take a look. We have this all now public for anyone to use. You can install it by PyPy. It's a Python package, and you can run it on PySpark, sorry. And if you are interested as well, you can also launch this as well on Databricks. We have Mosaic AI integrations, and you can do long-term serving on their serving endpoints. So what's next? If you go onto our webpage, you'll see that it's been a little bit quiet recently. This is because we're currently migrating this tool over to the Linux Foundation, and it might come out with a new name in a few months. We've also got some tooling that we kept back because we want to release it when we go to the Linux Foundation. So to even reduce costs even more, we've actually developed a Visual Studio Code extension. So that means all you need is the tooling and the serving of the endpoint, and you can take the Visual Studio Code extension, download it onto your VS Code, and start using the endpoints and searching, bringing the tooling straight to the developers where they work.
Thank you for that, Amber. But as our friends at IBM pointed out, is that getting people to actually get their repos up to the standards of the maturity model can be very challenging. In 2024, we ran a number of clinics in order to get people to adhere to the maturity model, and it worked in a hackathon-like style setting. We had dashboards which refreshed every so often to show how people were progressing. We still have those dashboards. However, we asked ourselves, what if we could leverage AI to help? And also, how could we make the fixes easier to implement? So this year, what we've created is something called the repo repair tool. So Amber, would you like to go through the key features, please?
Yeah, so it's currently developed on Plotly Dash, Python backend. And what a developer can do is that they can take their repo URL, put it in there, and they can ask for a generation of a report on what they need to do to make their repo better and meet our InnerSource maturity models. So, for example, it will give you a how-to-use guide, a contributor guide, license files, maintainer lists, shell-coded conduct, issue templates, PR templates, and even how to enable things like SonarQube or Dependabot. And what's really interesting is that that piece that we showed you in Project Fleming that we've open sourced of generating virtual readmes, we've actually included in here in this development as well. So if someone wants to have a virtual readme generated for their repo, they can just click a button and get a virtual readme. And it takes away a lot of the effort that developers go through when trying to do documentation. Another part is they can look at it in the web URL, but they can also download a full report. So if you're a manager and you have someone who you're working with who you need to say, I need you to get these repos up to standard, you can download that report and give it to your team members to say, like, this is what you need to do. Please go away and do it. And also everything in here is actually editable. So if someone doesn't like the README introduction or they want to update the contributor guide to be reflective of their work, they can actually edit it in the repo repair tool and the results will come out and they can then copy and paste it into their repo and make the changes. So it's making it really easy for people to get their repos up to standard. And once it's up to standard, it's really easy for us to then put it into the AI-powered discovery tool and then for people to find it.
So we're making this open source as well. The provisional title is Project Avanti. Avanti is Italian for forward. And we are also building an additional feature because we've had conversations with a number of firms about what it is that they define as an inner source maturity model. And the answer is mixed. People have different opinions on what should go into the maturity model. There are different criteria that people have. Some things are more important than others. So what we put in is an additional feature so that people can define a maturity model for themselves. We're leveraging the virtual README functionality, and we are going to be launching this via the Linux Foundation. Once we have got this out there, we will communicate this via the InnerSource Commons so that people can actually use it. Amber, do you want to pick up on the Copilot instructions element, please?
Yes. So a lot of us now are getting Copilot integrated into our normal work days and how we should use it. So how can we actually use this tooling in our standardizing approaches of InnerSource? Can we help Copilot to align teams and standards automatically? And can we change how Copilot answers so that it improves documentation, naming, and testing across the repos? Next slide, please. Well, the answer is yes. You can use Copilot to improve your repos, but this has to be in tangent with other pieces. So as you saw with the repo repair tool, we gave people virtual readmes, license files, contribution guides, and much more. So what we've done in Shell, if we've created a GitHub template that when someone creates a repo, they create it from this template. And this template has everything in it, such as README, licensing, contribution guidelines, how to use all the PR templates, all the issue templates, so that from day one, people should have those basic standards in their repo. We've also included the Copilot instructions markdown file that will help to guide Copilot. This means that when people are using Copilot in their coding, in their code, and using it in agent mode, it's not just going off and doing it in a random way. It's actually following the InnerSource standards. So it has the right structure for an InnerSource project. So we've got clear documentation and consistent coding styles. And this means from one developer to another, they're actually coding in the same way. And we're getting a very nice, consistent code stack within our organization. The Copilot instruction file tells Copilot how to behave, what patterns to follow, what not to do, and really how to support reuse and readability. So this setup just mainly ensures that people from day one can have their repos InnerSource ready, making it easier to share, reuse, and collaborate. And it also just provides another tool which helps people to feel confident when sharing their code.
So this is all part of our commitment because our adoption of InnerSource practices is a reflection of our commitment to open source values, sharing, collaboration, and open innovation. Now, you may be wondering why we're open sourcing all this. Well, there's a very simple reason, is that Shell is not a software company. Never have been, never will be. But nevertheless, we do operate in a digital space, even though our business is mainly energy. And quite frankly, we would like to get your ideas in there. One of the reasons why we all are InnerSource practitioners is to benefit from the diversity of ideas within our talent pools, to expand the reuse of code, to build, to use the cognitive space that people have in order to enhance the products that we're building. So are looking for more collaborators on this work. We're looking for people to use it in a variety of different scenarios, and we always welcome feedback. We would really like to see more collaborators download the tools that we're putting out there, provide us with feedback, contribute to our code base. We're always looking for that. And so we welcome anybody's participation and feedback in building a better open source tools to facilitate InnerSource.